Good morning and welcome to our second edition of the Infra Breakfast. Just as a reminder, we will be hosting this once a month. So today we have a hot topic. Back in February, Paris hosted the AI Summit, which has as a focus was on cooperation and regulation of artificial intelligence. France and China co-hosted the event, and India, co-hosted the event, gathering 100 countries and all kinds of experts in the field. 61 countries, including France, China, and India, signed an agreement. UK and US did not, regulating or declaring open, inclusive, and ethical AI. President Macron of France also announced an investment of over 100 billion euros in the coming years in AI, funded by both private and public sources. So as I said, it is a hot topic. Here to help us shed some light on this topic, we are thrilled to have two experts in the field. We have Adrien Basdevant and Henri Isaac. Welcome to both of you. Adrien is a member of the Paris Bar and co-founder of Entropy, which is a law firm specialized in tech law. And Henri Isaac is an associate professor of management at Paris-Dauphine University, specialized in telecom and regulations. Before I pass the mic over to our experts, I just want to remind you this is a live event. We'd love to hear from you, so send us your questions and we'll save some time at the end. So without any further ado, Adrien, thank you again for being with us, and I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Carrie, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Adrien Basdevant. I'm going to share my slides if it works. So I'm a tech lawyer. I work with AI model providers, so scale-up that are developing AI systems, but also large enterprise that are deploying those systems. And I'd like today to share with you some key takeaways. Since it's a breakfast about infrastructure, the first one would be that large language model that we often call LLM is just one part of the AI landscape and is actually just one part of the Gen AI landscape. So I think we tend to focus a lot on LLM because it was the hot topic in 2023 and 2024. But let's just remind that there are some AI winters and AI summers, meaning we are currently in a huge hype around those what so-called marketingly generative AI models, but it's part of a larger taxonomy of systems that can be both hybrid in between a symbolic and a connectionist approach. So as you can see, the large language model LLM, for instance, ChatGPT, that stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformers, so it's based on the Transformers architecture, is just one subset of a deep learning approach. And we saw that machine learning a lot currently. Just a few days ago, you may have seen this shared massively on LinkedIn, CNBC, while presenting all the LLM providers mistakenly substitute the liquid laundry detergent trademark Le Chat with the one developed by the foundation model provider Mistral. And there's a lot of talk right now saying that foundation model, so what is just the first layer, is becoming a commodity. Well, it's not. It's true that there's going to be a lot of merger and acquisition and a lot of consolidation in the coming years in the market. But there is also another trend of people that say that foundation model is becoming a product in itself and that the real value lies within this stack. So to better understand this, we actually, I don't know why. So I think we should talk about the AI system tech stack. So it's not only about the model component that are here, it's also about the underneath infrastructure, which is composed of firmware and hardware, but also about the product and user experience stack that is on top of it. And if you dezoom even more about that, you can look beyond the generative AI hype and back to the bigger digital stack. There is a super interesting study that was released 2 weeks ago, the Eurostack, a European alternative for digital sovereignty, that really represent the different layers, beginning from the critical resources, so the raw material, the energy, the water, then the chips, the networks, the Internet of Things, cloud software and data, and AI is only the last layer. So we need to have this complete view of the digital stack to better understand the infrastructure debate around AI. So the raw materials that you need, for instance, of course, you know that it can be the materials that are needed to produce semiconductors and their machinery, such as gallium to make lithography tools. You have also AI semiconductors equipment, such as goods that are needed for AI semiconductors production. And EU is lagging behind in a lot of this area. It has some actors at the foundation model layer, but then we have to better analyze the various advantages and shortcomings of those different approach. So sorry for the screen sharing that was partially out for a moment, but another takeaway is that the current trend is that we are talking more about agentic AI. Agentic AI is actually something that is not really new. It exists since the 90s. If you look at the books like The Modern Approach to AI by Peter Norvig and Russell in 1995, they already talk about agentic AI. Agentic AI is now used a lot as an expression to describe some agents, so partially autonomous AI system that are powered by a foundation model such as large language model or large visual model to enable to automate some actions. So you can automate the web, you can automate some search within your knowledge management. So this is another big trend. So as concrete takeaways, I would say that AI transformative potential extends across all sectors. So what you can do, back to the EU AI Act, within its Article 4, it talks about AI literacy, is as you are all AI model, either model providers or AI model deployers, you have to train your own team pretty massively to make sure that they can that you can adopt and scale AI solution within your organization. It's difficult right now to know exactly what's the number and the percentage of productivity that any organization can gain from this digital transformation, but for sure it's going to be a new moment, such as like when computers came along a few decades ago. There was not a question about maybe at the beginning it was a question of should you make that digital transformation, but now it's like quite a common practice. So I think it's pretty much the same for AI. So this is why we talk about AI literacy, to train within the organization the different team members to make sure that you can benefit from this productivity gain. Also, AI, you have to see it as an infrastructure. So when you take all the digital tech stack that I was just describing, you see that you can mitigate shortage and reduce dependencies on foreign suppliers. I just gave a few examples. When we go back to that digital tech stack, we see that 80% of Europe digital infrastructures are being currently imported. Just to give you a concrete example, Europe consumes about 20% of the world's microchips, but manufactures only 9%. So the last takeaway would be that AI adoptions relies on energy, and I think it's really important to mention that during an infrastructure breakfast. You know better than I do the current configuration in between various continents throughout the world, but the energy price competitiveness in Europe is pretty low, but there's going to be a rise in consumption. Some recent studies underline that it could be around 5%, and that would be triggered by the demand for data center power. So if you are an operator that is working in energy, waste management, etc., I think there can be a benefit to see what are the recent announcements around, for instance, the AI Champion Initiative in Europe with the announcement of 200 billion euros of investment, are also the one from the Elysee during the AI Summit around 109 billion investment, to see how you can leverage those public-private partnerships that are going to be going on in the coming years. So you can take part of that in that. So there are actually three ways of leveraging AI. The first one is within the organization for productivity. The second one is by proposing new services that incorporate AI, so AI-powered services in your existing offers. And the third one would be those public-private partnerships. So I will end on that. The final note saying that companies need to navigate this also complex regulation. There's a lot of talk right now also with this geopolitical tension in between US, EU, and other region of the world. There's the EU AI Act that has been entered into force last summer, but we are still pretty at the very beginning of the implementation timeline, and there are still some kind of practice and conduct that are being currently discussed. So happy to answer any question now or later if you have some.
Thank you, Adrien. Do we have any questions from the public, or we'll go on then with our next speaker? One thing I just wanted to go back to. So any specific strategies I hear about training? Absolutely. That infrastructure investment firms, asset managers should adopt to stay ahead of these changes affecting AI?
Yes. So I think so. AI is, as we call it, is a transformative technology. It's just not one tool. I think it's a bit like electricity or like the internet. It's going to be pretty transversal and massive. So we need to use the first advice would be to use the tools. So you have to use the tools. It's not only generative AI tools. Those can be like tools that that help making recommendation, prediction, or like any agentic, if you use the marketing terminology. But like you need first to use the tool, and then within the organization deploy those tools to gain productivity, and then you need to integrate those AI tools when they are appropriate, of course, not like by default, to also offer some augmented services. And I think when you're in the infrastructure ecosystem, there's going to be a lot of opportunities in relation to energy supply, but also to public-private partnership around data centers, and to make sure also we can create an environment, an ecosystem that is still innovative, but also environmental friendly.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Henri, sorry. We'll pass the mic over to you.
Thank you. So let's share my slide. I hope it works. I hope everyone sees the slide. So hi everyone, I'm Henri Isaac. I am an MIS professor at Paris-Dauphine University. And following Adrien's presentation, I will have a slightly different presentation. There are topics that Adrien already discussed, and I will give a different maybe point of view of some of them, but very complementary. Just to start, here, my view will be developed in 3 points. My main hypothesis is that AI is a new type of infrastructure. Adrien discussed the tech stack, and I will be back on that, because when talking about infrastructures in AI, everybody is focused on the hardware side and data center side. My hypothesis is that AI in itself, I mean models, is becoming a type of infrastructure as software were in the 80s and 90s. So we have to better understand where the value lie in this multiple technical layer stack. And I will discuss that because there is a huge debate right now taking place about where the value is, whether on the top of the layer of the stack or at the end or bottom of the stack. And that is a classical debate every time there is a new technology entering the landscape. So let's start by giving you some of my point of view about why there is an AI momentum. I have a view about digital transformation and digitization that is a combination of two huge mega trends, which is datification on one side and networking on the other side. And that combination leads toward the AI momentum as we go back to a very old approach of AI, which was funded by Frank Rosenblatt in the 50s, and which is data-driven rather than symbolic-driven. So that leads toward a huge transformation on how we build AI. So the idea is that AI is not coming from nowhere. It's a cumulative dynamic, and there is a multiple layer that are required to build AI. It started in the 70s where databases were introduced. In the 80s, it was a starting point from the software industries. In the 90s, we connect all of that and we built a World Wide Web, which is classically described by the internet. And that leads toward where we are today, where the momentum is about generative AI. But as Adrien already mentioned it, it's just one part of AI that we are discussing. But this is the one that is heavily relying on data. So that is heavily relying on what has been built over the decades about data that are relying in database, data that are shared on the web, and everything is needed to build that. So if we look back to that dynamic, we start with managing data, then we start to managing information and sharing it on the net. And all of that is building a new access to knowledge. And my view is that LLM is a type of methodology to extract knowledge from what we share on the net. So my idea is that, and it's quite interesting to notice that there are two different types of authors. One French philosopher, Michel Serres, in its book of 2010, described the internet as an offloading of our memory. And my view is that LLM is just a way to tap in this memory. And at the same time, almost the same time, there is another book from Clay Shirky, which is entitled Cognitive Surplus, which is quite interesting, that he mentioned that we are augmenting ourselves thanks to this externalized memory. And the idea is with LLM is just to access to that in another way. We didn't expect that thanks to deep learning and a statistic approach, we will be able to extract that knowledge that we share online. So I think that what we are trying to build at the moment is something I call cognitive infrastructure. And if you compare to what we are as humans, we have memory, we process data and information, we create ideas and insights, we have emotions, we take decisions and we learn. All these fundamentals actions that we do as humans, we are trying to rebuild them thanks to AI infrastructure. So at the moment, we choose to do that with a very intensive data-driven approach. And that's the way we want to build that. If we look back to my earlier framework, you see that on top of that, from data, information, and knowledge, we are trying at the moment to build also action based on that. Adrien mentioned agentic AI. I would also add robotics, which is a type of automation, action automation. And so if we carefully look at what we are trying to build collectively, whether in China, whether in Europe, whether in the US, we are trying to build a type of infrastructure that can augment ourselves on the whole. And it depends then if you have an individual views or group views on how to use that. But building that is a CapEx world. It costs a lot, and you need to invest a lot. And if you go back 10 years from now, you see that the factor is a 10-time price from 2015. And Adrien mentioned the type of investment that is required in Europe to just maintain the competition in Europe from China and the US. And you look at the figures that are already known from the big tech investments that they announced over the last quarter, you see that it's above 300 billions. So the question is, where does the value lie in this tech stack? As Adrien already described it, you can see that there is a multiple layer in this tech stack to build cognitive infrastructure. And there are a lot of debate at the moment on where does the value rely. So there's a lot of people thinking that value is at the bottom in the hardware. And there is some obvious fact that, for instance, computing companies such as NVIDIA are making a lot of money because they provide compute at a very high price. But if you carefully look, there's here a huge debate between infrastructure that are required to train models and then infrastructure that are required to use the model, which is called inference, and that don't require such a type of compute. Then there's a question about does, for instance, companies such as OpenAI, which is very specialized in building foundation model, will be the winner of the race in AI landscape, or will it be software vendors that are on the market that are enabled to encapsulate AI into their software? Or another point of view will be we don't need all of that. Maybe AI will take place at the edge, for instance, in your smartphone, and we don't require that huge infrastructure and technical infrastructure behind. And there's an alternative views about AI infrastructure, because some are seeing the things in a different way. And for instance, saying that you need to master every layer to extract value from AI. And this is a classical view about vertical integration. So if you look at what big tech are trying to do, they are trying to be at every stage of the tech stack, and with a vision of, if you don't integrate, you don't get the value. So at the moment...
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry. Could you kind of walk us through what the future of like the telecom infrastructure would look like in a world moving towards AI-driven smart cities and the Internet of Things?
You mean networks?
Yeah.
Okay, so networks...
Just have an example.
Okay, so there's a huge question about networks because I didn't put networks in those layers at the moment. Because there's not much value for, because it depends where compute is done, for instance. And just to answer your question, let me go to the next slide, because as many of you may know, Chinese release a very interesting architecture model called DeepSeek, which can run on a day-to-day computer almost, and re-question the technical stack, because that type of models, of AI model, leads toward the idea that we don't need such compute infrastructure, and everything can be compute at the edge, meaning in your computer. So if you go back to your questions, For instance, in smart cities, or for instance, in the automotive landscape, all of the compute can be done, for instance, in the car, and the connection is very limited. It is required and needed, but it is not as strategic as we thought at the beginning. So there's a lot of debate about the value in this new AI landscape. And as I started with the idea that AI is a new type of infrastructure, I just want to remind that that was the way we used to see value in the 80s, when operating systems were the core of the value in the informatics landscape. Today, they are almost free. So the question is, are we at the beginning of some sort of commoditization of AI? And so this is very complex to answer that questions, because there's a lot of uncertainty in how to invest and to make the right choice in investing in the right layers. So I won't be longer than that, and I thank you for listening, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I would like to remind the public once again, send us your questions. We have our experts here happy to answer them. Maybe I have a question for either of you. What role does AI play in enhancing the resilience and adaptability of infrastructure to climate change? I don't know. Who would like to take that one?
It's a tough question. It's a tough question. Let me start. There are some models, if you look at what's available right now, that are very good at predicting climate change and disaster risk. For instance, flood, landslide, and fire, forest fire. Google has done a very good job in this area. And so it might be part of the response, having more accurate, reliable predictions about weather could be part of the answer and help us manage the climate change.
Okay. Adrien, anything you'd like to add on the subject? No? Okay. How can AI act as a driver of the transition to smart and adaptive cities?
Many things rely on managing traffic and energies within towns and cities. It depends on how we deploy AI and, for instance, in automotive industry, and the way we build solutions of transport based on that for cities. At the moment, the way we see autonomous vehicle is more a shared car. For instance, you see Waymo, for instance, in the United States, or cab in China, but we can go a bit further with a whole set of automotive vehicles that are coordinated through AI, so that you can better manage traffic within towns. So I think automotive companies have to rethink their business model on how they sell that to cities rather than to individuals.
I think it also gets back to the current debate about the limitation of a large language model. Like, if you listen to some chief scientist officer, for instance, Yann LeCun has been pretty vocal about a new paradigm in AI architecture that would go beyond the current limitation of LLMs, meaning, in other words, that LLMs are good for manipulating language, but not for thinking. And so when you connect in a more granular way sensors with the IoTs and smart cities to AI, then you can address those current limitations in understanding and interacting with the physical world. So it depends of the approach and on the views, but there are a lot of AI developers that says that the new paradigm will be in integrating those layers, perceptron, understanding the environment and the ecosystem around you, and linking it to the AI systems. So I think currently, for instance, we're using a lot of computers, we're using a lot of mobile phones, but then when you integrate sensors, for instance, connected lenses or glasses, then you can also collect a whole new set of data in real time. This is, of course, already the case with the connected cars, but there are going to be even more sensors that are going to collect a new whole set of data. And I think that has been addressed by Henri, and it is really important to understand, like, an AI system is basically something that is being fed by data, but it's not producing the same kind of outputs. Some of them are multimodal, meaning they can understand a lot of various input data, but some of them are going to focus more on text, code, image, video. Now, back to your question, Carrie, like if we have like smart cities, what you want to know is understanding the physical world. So then what you need to have as an interface for input data is some kind of sensors that will be able to like take some patterns of 3D objects, of what's going on in real time around you, and then transform it so that the model and the AI system can then make a prediction, generate an output, etc. So I think this is the paradigm that many companies are aiming to.
Thank you. We have a few questions from our public. One is, which countries are leading the way in integrating AI into telecom infrastructures? I don't know if either of you want to answer that one. Which country is leading?
Which country is leading? Obviously, United States and China for the moment. If you look at the numbers of models and startups and funding that are available as data, but there are also European countries, and France is not so bad in this area. I don't know what you think about that, Adrien.
I think it will depend a lot on the latest announcements, because it's good to have announcement, but then concretely what will happen. And I think that there was a question in the chat about the short-term options for infrastructure operators, and I think like being able to seize those opportunities and to make sure they really happen might be within the French territory or at the European level or worldwide is really what's key here. So I think being able to embrace those opportunities by having this new innovation mentality and making sure that those telecom operators work hand in hand with the innovative model providers, and like that we can make sure that we have a real solid tech stack that is being working together.
Do you think the European regulatory framework, especially the AI Act, will be able to foster this innovation and the competitiveness of Europe?
So it is the current conversation that is being underway with the AI office. So pretty much, so to simplify the answer, like, the AI Act is just the first layer of the regulation. This entered into force in August 2024. Now there are a lot of code of practice that are being discussed in between the AI office, which is linked directly to the EU Commission, and like private and public entities that are part of the ecosystem. Those code of practice, some of them are focusing on what we call high-risk AI system. I didn't go into details about the AI regulation because it's more than 100 pages, but of course I can follow up with whoever is interested after that breakfast. But there are code of practice that are focusing on high-risk AI system. There are other code of practice that are focusing on foundation model, which is qualified legally as general purpose AI model. And the way those code of practice are going to be negotiated and the way they're going to be implemented are going to be going to have a tremendous importance in how EU companies could be innovative in the field. We have to strike the right balance in between having a framework that can enable innovation and something that is not too burdensome for some also really innovative projects. So it's been debated at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I think we have no other questions from our listeners at the moment. So let me just thank both of you for your time. Thank you to the public for being here with us. Remember, this is a monthly event. This is live streamed. We will be sending out, we'll be recording it. You can see it in the future as well on our LinkedIn page. And don't hesitate to keep asking your questions, send your questions. Do either of you have any last words that you'd like to share before we finish?
Well, thank you for being present today. And I think we are just at the beginning of a new era. And as we discuss it today, don't just focus on LLM, which is part of the landscape, but there's many other type of AI that you need to look at.
I completely share this view, and I think for every AI stream, there's actually, if we go into granularity, a very specific stack to it. So the stack are pretty different for various configuration. Of course, we did not go into details only in 30 minutes today, but very happy to follow up with Henri and all of you later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And to all of you out there, join us as members and let's just keep sharing ideas and best practices. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.